Hello there, everybody. I have a apology to make. So it seems that due to some of the ways that radio stations record audio, we've had a glitch, and we lost about a little bit less than half the episode. So I just wanted to preface this episode by showing that you're kind of going to get a in media res version of the show, in which we show up about halfway through. If I can recover the rest of the episode, I will repost the whole thing together at a later date. But the interview was really great, so I wanted to really promote it. So here you go. Welcome to Gradcast, the official podcast of the Society of Graduate Students at the University of Western Ontario. Or an additive?
Right. Sorry, butenol. Butenol, mostly right now, it would be seen as an additive. It's a much better, with our standard gasoline that we have these days, it blends much better than your standard bioethanol, and it has a higher octane rating, meaning that it's a lot cleaner and a lot safer on your engine. So right now, in the current stages of where we are with our biofuel production, it's much more integrating into systems we already have existing and trying to slowly shift towards the greener and more environmentally friendly path.
So then I guess, one more question I'll hand off to Jina for this. Pretend I'm Elon Musk, and I am, I mean, I've been hearing a lot about these, like just why we need biofuels for kind of trying to shift to electric cars and stuff. Right. I'd be interested if you could weigh in, since you're an engineer also, about this battery versus liquid fuel discussion. Sure.
So with Mr. Musk and his technology, with the good old Tesla car, it's some great steps towards. With a lot of fuel cells, they're very inefficient in terms of the surface area that they need. In addition, if you're using hydrogen as your fuel cell base and you're electrolyzing that within a system, having a tank of hydrogen gas within your car isn't necessarily the safest thing to have. That's just a walking explosion waiting to happen. So when it comes to the liquid fuels argument, they're not as efficient and not as up to date as what the electric car would be, but I see it as a good, again, as a good curbing away from just relying on pure petroleum processing and pure, just oil extraction. We're running low on our resources, as we all know, and it's really, again, just trying to teeter that away and focus more on these bioprocessing plants and whatnot. So, yeah.
Awesome.
So which way would be the more green way to go?
Ultimately, in terms of biofuel production, I would say it's this area of research is really geared towards, I'm just trying to put a word on it. I can't think of it right now. It's bothering me.
Like a variety?
Variety, yeah. I would say that this, with the biofuels and with the biofuels that I'm producing in this process, they're really geared towards chemicals. So a lot of the chemicals that you don't see going into our chemical industry, our current existing infrastructure, so butenol. Butenol is a very popular substrate for many polymers and useful products that we use within our daily lives. So I really see biofuels focusing more on behind-the-scenes cleanup of the oil and gas industry and the beginning steps into creating truly green bioprocessing, more so than necessarily the revolution of alternative fuels for cars and transportation. That is a very important step that we also need to look into in terms of society and people researching and whatnot, but I think in the long run, biofuels will be more geared towards those behind-the-scene chemicals that we all learn to love. Great.
So I guess moving away from research?
I got a couple more questions.
Sure.
Before
Sure.
Everyday life. So I kind of mentioned earlier, you're coming on at actually a really good time, because just this week, Audi announced that they have concocted some sort of process, and I believe uses electrolysis.
Yes.
To make diesel fuel basically out of air.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's a process that uses electricity and like turns carbon dioxide into
Right.
diesel fuel. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that, or
Sure.
or serious concerns.
So yeah, I would say I have both. I had actually seen this company. The company behind this is known as Sunfire GmbH. They're an Austrian-based company, and what they're doing is technology that's existed for about 50 or 60 years. Electrolysis, electrolysis we've known since, Lord knows when, I don't know my history of science too well. But the primary process for producing these chemicals and fuels, the Fischer-Tropsch process, has existed since the 50s. The problem with this Fischer-Tropsch process is that the reactors require a huge surface area, and it's very energy intensive. It takes a lot of energy going into it. I think one of the main reasons that Audi has been getting a lot of the attention recently regarding their ability to produce these biofuels and alternative diesels and whatnot is because of the existing infrastructure within the German energy and water management systems that they have in place. They're relying on almost all renewables, if not all renewable energy sources right now. So they're able to kind of access their grid and use those energy intensive processes as they have renewable energy to back them. So it's a less reliance on our typical non-renewables such as oil and gas, and greater focus on the energy that they have that's renewable. In addition to that, they've probably done a lot of intensive research and development into producing reactors. Sorry, I'm stuck in my bio world. Reactors that are able to effectively and efficiently increase needed teeters for a multinational scale.
And you were kind of talking about bioreactors, and this is another really cool question. Is
sure.
Like, I mean, using bacteria to make chemicals we want is both the oldest and one of the newest things going on right now.
Completely.
So could you tell us like a little bit about humans using these little microbes to make chemicals we want? Kind of maybe the 10-second history and like kind of where it is now.
Sure. So you could really say using microorganisms for producing useful products has been around since the Egyptians and the Babylonians.
Beer, cheese, yogurt.
Oh yeah, all that good stuff. Like Greek yogurt, gotta love it. But we're really getting into an understanding of how these microorganisms work and really what makes them tick and how we can influence their ticks to produce ticks that we need. Not actual physical ticks, because that'd be gross, but useful products and whatnot. So it's really understanding a lot of the metabolic processes, how if you give them substrate A, they'll produce product Y. If you adjust the pH to this, they'll produce more of this. It's really just a lot of trial and error and just trying to understand what's going on. I think the big thing that I've pulled from my learning in biochemical engineering is really life is just redox. It's just really an electric impulse given, and an electric output is produced somehow. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and one last question is, given like if everything in this project goes as optimistic as possible, what could you see like the main benefit to mankind, humankind, being as a result?
Right. For this project, I'd say ultimately the focus on, again, going towards more greener and more biologically friendly technologies and having kind of that be the sluice gates opening for interest in this field, and pursuing, again, these large processes that are friendly to both the environment and to ultimately sustain us. I think that's the most important part of this research, and that this research inspires and is able to help people in the future make even greater discoveries than anything I ever could, and I'm sure they will. I'm sure there will be lots of people who will be able to do that. And just kind of geared towards using microorganisms as useful little production plants.
They're our friends.
Yes,
Aww.
our little friends.
Alrighty, so now we come back. Okay, I'm done geeking out now. So go ahead, Gina.
Okay, so I'm just gonna move away from research and
Sure.
talk about outside school involvement. So I
Sure
hear
thing.
that you are going on a research exchange to Germany.
I am, yeah.
That's really interesting. So
Yes.
can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, how that worked and how you had this opportunity to go?
Sure. So within my lab group, my professor, Dr. Raymond, who is German, has been planning a collaboration with the university that I'll be working with. The university is called RWTH Aachen. And he is working with another, so he's Dr. Lars, and he's working with another Dr. Lars in Germany. Yeah, I know, it gets confusing. So the part of the deal was that the German Dr. Lars will come over to our lab and visit, and a grad student of his will come over and visit and do their research. And then our doctor, so Canadian Dr. Lars, and one of his students will go over and do research there. So I was lucky enough that the projects that they have going on at RWTH Aachen line up quite nicely with the research that I'm doing here.
Nice.
And as such, I was just lucky enough to be chosen to go ahead and experience Germany, so I can't wait.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Just a little bit. I'm much better with my French. I was just going to say juste un peu, but that's French, obviously, so that's not very applicable.
Don't mix those up.
Yeah, I'll try.
They don't like that.
It's bad, it's bad, I know.
So are you taking the research that you have going on here to Germany and then finishing it up there? Is that what's going on?
I will be working on my research there, but in addition to that, I'll be working with another professor. He's actually a Brazilian professor on a different project that they have set up for me there. So I'm quite excited to work on that. Supposedly the equipment's top of the line, and there's only 1 out of 4 of these that exist in the world. So it's been hyped up a lot. So I'm expecting something pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I guess like I could ask, like, in like your average day, like I'm always fascinated because I find out that grad students have so many different lives compared to each other. And I'd be interested, like, what like a typical day in the chemical engineering office is like.
Sure. Like I said, the first hour is really just kind of your emails and hobnobs and whatnot, and then usually I'll go into the lab. If I have an experiment running, check on it, see how it's doing. If not, set up an experiment, get something going, figure out something. This week I've really been focused on some modeling using some of the chemical processing software that we have.
Like working on the face.
Yeah, no, I wish that.
Making sure you're just looking at the camera just right.
No, I know. Yeah, no voguing, unfortunately, but actually process modeling. So just for what we're looking at is trying to get a system. Somebody in our group is also looking into butenol extraction from our bioreactor. Butenol, as fun as it is for party hangover, it's also pretty toxic for our little organisms too, so we need to try to get that out of our reactor as fast as possible. So I've just been working on a theoretical model using some equations of states and some software that we have and trying to figure out a feasible system to get that product out of there. So
I read books and taught myself math all day.
Yeah.
So, like, it's interesting to like kind of know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say wet labs, is that kind of like under the fume hood?
Yeah. So that would be, for me, with my work that I'm doing, really getting my culture set up, either scaling them up to the bioreactors and running a bioreactor for several days, or looking at them from the flask level and just seeing how they're growing, what types of products they're producing, stuff like that.
So like I've never run an experiment before.
Sure.
Shocking. But like I can imagine if you're really excited about one, do you ever get tempted to just like you know you only have to look at it like maybe once every 6 hours to make sure that nothing is exploded?
Yeah.
You're always just like, I can check one more time. Come on. Like,
you know, I usually do that if an experiment is going wrong, it seems kind of counterintuitive, but if things are going right, I know that I can sample every, for example, like you said, 6 hours, so everything's going good. But if I see something at the 3-hour mark that shouldn't be happening, that's when I'll get into a panic, for me at least. I'll get into a panic mode and I'll come back an hour later and I'll take a sample again and make sure things are going good. And if they're not, try to supplement it with something else. And I don't know. For me, it gets into a bit of a panic room scenario. But I mean, yeah, if I am running an experiment that really interests me, I'm definitely much more gung-ho to get in there and see what's going on.
And I guess the question escaped me. I'll come back later.
Yeah, no worries.
Oh, I have a question.
Sure.
Would you ever run out of these microorganisms that you're using?
Well, the techniques that we have set up in the lab, so when you're wanting to order a microorganism, you'll talked to one of the cell cataloging corporations. The ones that I ordered were all from Germany, so they come from these cell culture corporations in what's known as a lyophilized state. So it's a frozen, dried pellet of the organism, and if you store it in the proper conditions, this pellet can last up to like 5-10 years. So what I'll do from there is I'll regenerate this dried pellet into liquid media, and from there I can prepare what's known as a cryoculture, and those cryocultures can last up to, again, when you store it, for us we store it in the -80 freezer, it can last up to a year or two. So yeah, it's pretty easy, especially given the volumes that we're dealing with. You can have these things really go on forever if you want to.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, I got time for one more question.
Sure.
And this one is extremely important. So, so while working with these bacteria, just how horrible does this stuff smell?
You know, I'm kind of used to it by now. It smells, well, if I'm dealing with the butyric acid, that smells like dirty foot cheese. So that one's pretty nasty.
Tasty.
I've had times where I've released way too much into the lab, and it just because it has a low volatility, and it just stinks up everywhere. So that one's not good. But otherwise, it smells like a kind of yeasty bread, like kind of off yeasty bread. So nothing. I haven't gotten anything too crazy yet, and like I said, I'm kind of acclimatized to it now. But I mean, yeah, I guess it smells pretty bad.
All right, Eric, thank you so much for coming on.
No worries.
And you guys out there in Radioland, stay tuned. We're going to have a little tiny commercial break. And after that, we actually have another episode of Gradcast. I actually found it. It's in the thing. So for, I believe, the summer at least, we're going to be doing, we've been doing the podcast, which when we moved to every other week, we've been doing like an off-week podcast, which you should definitely be listening to at gradcastradio.ca. But for this summer, we're going to be showing off a few of them on the radio because we have a little bit extra time after the show. And so I hope you guys have an amazing week. I want to thank Eric again.
Thank you for having
being
me.
Awesome. And you guys out there in London, drive safe. It's raining out there, so, you know, and have an awesome May. It's beautiful outside these days. Take care.
That's all for this week. If you want to send us some feedback, or if you want to come on the show yourself, email us at gradcastradio@gmail.com. Be sure to hook us up on social media. On Twitter, we're at GradcastRadio, and look up Gradcast Radio also on Facebook. If you want to subscribe to the podcast is located at gradcast.podbean.com, and it's on iTunes. And while you're there, why don't you leave us a review? It really helps us out. We'll see you guys next week.